The Eminence in Shadow, Kage no Jitsuryokusha ni Naritakute. Studio Nexus's 2022 Fall Isekai anime is based on a light novel, which has been published in Japan since November 2018. Kage no Jitsuryokusha ni Naritakute has been published in English as The Eminence in Shadow by Yin Press since August 11, 2020. This anime is claimed to be some sort of parody, and even more bafflingly a deconstruction of isekai that makes fun of all OPMC tropes. But the thing with this anime is that it takes itself extremely seriously, from the liters of blood being spilled every time a battle happens to the multiple episodes where there isn't a single joke in them, and the tropes presented across the anime are, as I said before, played completely straight. Summary: for as long as he can remember, Minoru Kage has been fixated on becoming as strong as possible, which has led him to undertake all kinds of rigorous training. This wish, however, does not stem from a desire to be recognized by others. Rather, Minoru does everything he can to blend in with the crowd. So, while pretending to be a completely average student during the day, he arms himself with a crowbar and ruthlessly thrashes local biker gangs at night. Yet when Minoru finds himself in a truck accident, his ambitions seemingly come to a sudden end. In his final moments, he laments his powerlessness. No matter how much he trained, there was nothing he could do to overcome his human limitations. But instead of dying, Minoru reawakens as Sid, the second child of the noble Kage family, in another world, one where magic is commonplace. With the power he so desired finally within his grasp, he dons the moniker Shadow and establishes Shadow Garden, a group whose sole purpose is to combat the enigmatic cult of Diablos, an organization born from Sid's imagination. However, as Shadow Garden grows in both membership and influence, it becomes increasingly apparent that the cult of Diablos is not as fictional as Sid had intended. Kagejitsu is a power fantasy parody, so for it to suit your taste you need to accept the fact that there will never be a tense fight. But animes like Overlord and this, both are rather similar in this regard, have quick but literal meta-breaking fights which are always overkill to the point that you feel pity for the bad guy. All this while the protag remains oblivious to the true nature of things because he is rather ignorant/dumb. The only difference between the comedic style of Overlord and Kagejitsu is the way Overlord carries comedy with it. How Ains is supposed to be benevolent, the all-knowing, the all-seeing, yet inside, he is the most confused person in the room. Shadow only cares about being the coolest person in the room, so he will keep making shit up as long as it makes him seem so, even though he accidentally ends up being correct. Plot: the protag has a simple yet twisted goal. He wants to be a normal-looking guy who is actually an eminence in shadow, i.e. his alter ego is basically the strongest person, although his named self is the normiest of normies. The show has amazing pacing for an isekai. It wastes no time in introducing a new and vast cast, and still manages to make sure that the quirk and charm of these characters are well balanced, and explores it enough for a perfectly timed gag. The plot itself is basically Shadow making up crap that more often than not is a convenient flavor text for him. But a reality for the actual world is quite an interesting and hilarious take because to my knowledge, he still believes that they are all role-playing with him XD. It is quite the feat that so many characters have an intertwined story, with each having a role to play in Shadow-sama's vision. Characters: I can't believe the number of waifus this show has produced in mere minutes of each of them being on screen, going from obvious fetish bait to quite endearing and adorable waifus with very distinct personalities. Within 20 episodes, we get introduced to a whole slew of characters, and well, it's no wonder that all the members of Shadow Garden happen to be hot slime-wearing ladies. Sadly, the story doesn't spend enough time to explore them all, and to be honest, I couldn't even remember some of them. They were just there. Sound and VA. The amazing VA is what helps land most of the jokes. Some hidden gags that can only be understood if you were Japanese were well expressed by the subs. So props to the fandom for that. The OST is pretty overused, and except of some very epic, I am Atomic Moments. It's usually something you heard the last episode. The ED is better than the OP in my opinion. Art and animation. Fights are short, and the animation that comes with the more epic scenes definitely outshines any other scenes, hence it feels unbalanced. I also do not know why, but every scene in the anime seems very 480p even after turning 1080p on in many different websites. The exception is the ed art. Thank you for subscribing to the channel and liking the video.